Good evening everybody. Today I am going to give a presentation on the topic OER, which means Open Educational Resources. So I'm going to present my screen here. Yes. This is the PPT on OER, Open Educational Resources. Now I would like to start with the contents. The contents of my presentation are introduction, definition, creation, and how it is made, and what are its features, and how it is beneficial to teachers, students, institutions, developers, and what are the OER repositories worldwide as well as in India. And I would like to discuss next about Creative Commons licenses and the limitations of OER, and I would like to wind up my presentation with the future of OER. So these are the contents of my presentation. Now let us start with the very first topic, that is introduction. Okay. Now I would like to introduce what is an OER. The full form of OER is Open Educational Resources. Now Open Educational Resources are available to us free of cost online, and they are very much necessary for both teachers as well as students, because they provide us with good quality learning materials. Okay. Now how did this topic started? Okay. So let us discuss that briefly. Now innovative teaching and learning methods have always been around, because many enterprising teachers as well as course content developers, all these people, they started working on different educational resources that can help with making learning better, enjoyable, and relatable. So to fulfill these things, they have been inventing new methods for teaching and learning. Traditionally, we all know that teaching was concentrated in talk and chalk method, where the teacher wrote material on the blackboard, explained it, and the students took running notes in their notebooks, and the teacher clarified the questions. This method is followed in many places even today, and it is effective in its own way. It has its own benefits as well. We can't deny that. But innovative methods are always welcomed because we want to make learning a better experience. Talk and chalk method helps, but it is not completely sufficient. So later on, they started inventing other props and other materials like audiovisual aids, with the development of tape recorder, and then we have developed the video recording. So these things also helped us as learning tools. Now after that, with the advent of internet, we have what we call as ICT tools. ICT tools are the internet communication technology tools. Now ICT tools are very important right now, because this generation is called Generation Z. Now Generation Z is known for its tech savviness. We all know that the children of this generation are very much comfortable using technology. They know technical aspects much better than many of us, and that's why they are called digital natives, because they are born into this internet revolution, and that is clearly seen in how they adopt to this technology very well. So that is why using these tools to make learning a good experience is a good idea, I think. So that is what ICT tools teaching is concerned about, to make the student feel comfortable in the medium that he or she is exposed to most of the time. Okay, now next, what is the meaning of OER? Now OER is, as I told you, open educational resources. Now this concept actually started way back in 1994. It was started by a person called Wayne Hodgins. Now Wayne Hodgins wrote on a concept called learning objects. Now what are learning objects? See, learning objects is very simple. It is something which every mother does when the child is at home before going to school, when the child is around 2 or 1 or 2 years. The mother takes different objects, household objects, and she keeps telling about each and every object. She says, this is apple, this is this is that. So all these objects become learning objects. All the household objects become learning objects because they help the child identify and learn the words pertaining to those objects. So learning objects are the objects, the props that are used for learning. Now there is a slightly another classification of learning objects, that is reusable learning objects. See, the objects which we use in schools, primary schools, especially in kindergarten, those objects are all mostly reusable objects. Means the same object can be used for different batches of children. Like for example, you take charts, you take flashcards, you take atlas, globe, you take maps. All these things, they can be used for many batches, and they are learning objects. They are reusable. So that is why they are reusable learning objects. Now this concept has been stretched a little more, and that became open educational resources. See, these are also learning objects. They are also reusable, and they are also available on internet. So this is open educational resources briefly. Okay, now let me give you the definition which is given by the UNESCO. The crux of the definition, I am not going to read it out. The crux of the definition is open educational materials can be legally and freely distributed. We can use them, we can reuse them, we can share them, we can adapt them, and they stretch from textbooks to curricula, syllabi, lecture notes, assignments, tests, projects, video, animation. All these things come under OER. Okay, now next let us discuss briefly the history of OER, how the concept has started. The concept has started in 1998 by a person called David Wiley. Well, he started the term, he coined the term called open content. Means content which is freely available, freely distributable. Okay, so this concept has started in 1998, and they have started developing content and putting it on internet and distributing it for free. That is how it has started. Next we have Larry Lessig. Larry Lessig is the person behind the Creative Commons in 2001. Now this is a set of licenses that are very much important, because these licenses have made these materials available online free of cost and ready for distribution. Usually the material that is available on internet is copyrighted, because it is the intellectual property of someone, and copying from that is a crime, isn't it? But whereas when you prepare material under the Creative Commons license, it is not subject to copyright, because you will be giving that right. You, in the sense the author will be giving the right to redistribute it, to publish it, and to remake it to the users. So this is the Creative Commons. They have started developing lot of content under these licenses. I will discuss these licenses in the coming slides. Now I would like to talk about the MIT Open Courseware, which started again in 2001. MIT is nothing but Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they have developed open courseware in the year 2001. They have started many distant learning courses, and they have put these courses available online. You can subscribe to them, you can pay a minimum amount, and you can do a certificate course. You can take the exam, and at the end of the course you will be given a certificate. The entire materials, lectures, everything will be posted online. Now we have many platforms like this right now, but it started way back in 2001. MIT was the starting point for this kind of courseware. And next, in 2002, UNESCO has understood the value and the meaning and also the necessity of OER, and they have said that they are accepting OER as a medium of education, and they wanted to spread this to other countries where learning resources are scarce, where people who can develop resources are not available on a large scale. So this has helped many countries which are educationally lagging behind. Okay, next we have the Cape Town Open Education Declaration. Now in Cape Town is in Africa, and there was a convention that was held here in 2008 about open courseware, and many countries have signed this declaration saying that they want to be a part of this open coursework, that they will adopt and they will also adapt and they will also contribute to open course content. Okay, now the next slide. Downes, the writer, has created a few models for the creation of OERs. Now OERs are created very painstakingly because it takes a lot of money, resources, a team of people, authors, scholars to write this. Okay, so and it also needs good quality work. You can't just publish anything, right? It should be of the courseware should be of quality, and it should fulfill the needs of the students. Okay, so that is why Downes has proposed many models for the development of OERs. First is taught about endowment model. Now in endowment model, it so happens that the contributor, whoever is, he works under a trust. Now this trust has a huge fund, a capital amount, and out of that interest is paid by the bank, and this interest is utilized for the development of OER. Now this is one method, and the next method is after endowment method, the next method is membership method. In membership method, the person, the user, should take membership. He should pay the subscription fees, and then he will be given a user word and user ID and a password, and he has to log in and he can utilize the courseware. Okay, this is the membership model. So the entire coursework, the cost and expenses are met through the money that is pooled through memberships. Now the next method is, of course, the donation model. In donation model, we have donors, the users themselves, or sometimes other contributors as well. So everybody chips in some money, and they keep this website or the open courseware going. Wikipedia is the best example. We see in Wikipedia many times a notification for donations. So the Wikipedia runs on that. They don't have advertisements. Some sites have advertisements, these people don't have. So they take donations from different kinds of people. The next one is the conversion model. In conversion model, it so happens that In conversion model, the courseware starts as a freeware first. They give some kind of material to the users for free of cost, and they will withhold some material which is also equally important. Okay, half of it is given for free and the other half is hid, or sometimes the material which is of less quality is given for free and the material for higher levels of education is not free. Okay, so they intend to convert the user into the person who is who pays for the material. So they want to convert the free user into the paid member. So this is called the conversion model. And the next one is contributor model. In contributor model, the contributor means the developer of the OER himself or herself. They put some money into the development of OER, and they take donations personally, and they keep this OER afloat. Now that is one method. The next one is sponsorship. In sponsorship, there might be philanthropists, or there might be people who are interested in education, who want to contribute something to the world. So these people, they may act as sponsors for the development of OER, and they may bear all the costs for the creation and distribution of the OER. Next is institutional. The best example is, of course, as I have told you earlier, MIT. The institution has developed a lot of courseware and they have distributed it, and they have had courses based on that. So this is entirely run by the institution and the people who work for the institution. And next one is the government model. In government model, the government itself, the Ministry of Human Resources or the Ministry of the Education, takes initiative. They recruit people to create an OER, and they sponsor money. They put it in a database and they run the database on behalf of the government. So this is one method. And the last method is the partnership. Partnerships can be between two people, two institutions, or government and private institution. Either ways, the people will contribute their sum of money which they have agreed upon, and the OER is developed and maintained with that money. So these are the few models of OERs. Now next slide is the features of OER. There are 5 features that are very important for OER. They are reuse, retain, revise, remix, redistribute. Now reuse means using the material any number of times you want. So in an OER you can download the material and you can reuse it for as many times as possible, for as many projects as possible. Next one is retain. Whatever you download, you can keep a copy for yourself. See, even in Wikipedia, when we download, it will ask us, do you want it to be saved as a PDF? So you can save it as a PDF and it will become your own book. Okay, like that we can. Next is revise. Now you can take the material from an OER, you can add your own material to it, whatever you want to add for your students. If you want to simplify it, or if you want to add more points to it, you can revise it. Next one is remix. Remix means you can take OERs from 2 or 3 sources, mix them and create a new OER. This is also possible in OER. And next, last one is redistribute. You can take an OER and distribute it among your students or among the students of your entire institution. So this is called redistributing. Means you are taking the material and distributing it to a lot of people. Now, what are the benefits of OER? Benefits that are to be given to the teachers. Now, OERs help the teachers to get peer-to-peer contact, and they can understand what their peers are doing and how they are developing new models and how they are teaching something, and the teacher can get a first hand experience of this through the OER. The teacher can also participate. This is what is collaborative. The teacher can participate in the OER. He or she can make their own contributions to it. So then it becomes collaborative, and it can be preserved for a long time. See, sometimes a course may not be popular at this time, but after 3 or 4 years it may become popular. Again, it may go out of popularity. So in such cases, if you develop an OER, it can stay like that. It can help people in coming generations also. Okay, and next, open access. OERs are easily accessible through internet connection. All you need is just one internet connection. That's it. Even if you have a smartphone, you can easily access the material. So that is the biggest benefit for all stakeholders, not just teachers. Next is, what are the benefits to the students? The first and foremost benefit for any student is cost saving. See, there are many studies done on the cost of the textbooks, and they say that textbooks prices of different textbooks has risen almost 20 to 25% in the past 4-5 years. Now this is becoming a big burden because the student has to buy textbooks, has to pay his tuition, again accommodation, so many other costs are there. So that is why if you are able to minimize the burden at least to some extent, it will be of huge help to the students. So OERs help in saving these costs. And next is self-learning. OERs help in learning things. They will help you, the student, to learn at their own pace. And a student can do it on his own in his free time. Sometimes the student may not get time to attend the school or college because of other responsibilities. So in such conditions, self-learning is very good viable option, and that can be done through OERs. And next is enhancing skills. Sometimes some students, they keep working, and during the evening or in their free time they take up online courses and they enhance their skills for the betterment of their job, and they can be more job ready. Not only students who are working, but even students who are studying also can do extra online courses, which will be a good addition to their resume and which can land them very good jobs. They can enhance their particular skills through these online courses. And next is wider application. Definitely because the material comes from different places, different countries, there will be a lot of application to it, and sometimes some of the OERs can be used by different disciplines. So it can become multidisciplinary material also, and it is learner centric. All OERs concentrate mostly on the learners and how to make things easy for them, how to make them understand better. So that is why it is learner centric. Now next, benefits to the institutions. For all the institutions, OERs are very beneficial. First, they build up good reputation, definitely, because we are talking about MIT. MIT has developed OpenCourseware somewhere in 2001, and still we are speaking about it. So that itself shows us that OER gives an institution a very good reputation. And next, OERs help us to do the business of teaching very efficiently, and it will develop partnerships between different institutions. Sometimes some institutes collaborate with other institutions when they go for OERs and online courses. So that is why it is very beneficial to them. Sustainability. Sustainability is how far the OER can survive. Yes, an OER can survive when we make a good plan, when we have a good capital and use the resources properly. And then it can help in remote learning. Distance learning, as I have already mentioned it is the same here. Remote learning means distance learning. Okay, so the students can learn from home, or they can keep working and learning together. Next one is sharing of ideas. OERs help us to share ideas. All the contributors of the institution can share ideas. They can come together as a team and do lots of work in development of OER. Next, what are the benefits to the developers? The developer of the OER, first and foremost, he gets a good feedback, because the users give feedback, isn't it? They post comments. They say, your material is good, your material helped me with this, could you just, or sometimes they may give suggestions. They say, could you please add this also as well, because this is very much necessary for us. So like that, the constant feedback that is given by the users will benefit the developers, and they will get the general direction in which they have to travel while developing the course content. And next is peer review. All the peers, the teachers who have gone through the OER, they also give their own reviews, and they also give their own suggestions to the developers, which will be highly beneficial to them. And next, some of the users, some of the teachers themselves may come and say that they want to collaborate with the developer, and together they can develop a new OER. That is also helpful. And sometimes some OER, as I have told, can be used for different courses. So then it becomes a multidisciplinary OER. And it has a lot of digital reach, definitely, because internet is here to stay, isn't it? And it is going to increase day by day. So as long as there is internet, definitely the OERs will have a good circulation and a longer reach to the people. Now, what are the OER repositories in the world? There are many names that I have given here, but I'm not going to read all of them because there are too many. But I'm sure if you just search in Google, you will get a lot of courses, a lot of websites, databases that are connected to OER. Okay, it is just a click of button. I'm just mentioning a few here. Like OER MetaFinder, Merlot. Merlot is the biggest, largest repository. And then there is LiveLingua, NanoHub, Oasis, Curiki Connections, Tessa. Tessa is actually based in Africa, and it is also adopted in India as well. And of course, Hippocampus, Orange Grove, Skills Commons, all these things. And open online courses are also given in many sites like Academic Earth, Bridge to Success, edX, MyriadX, and Coursera. I'm sure most of you have done at least a few online courses during pandemic last year. Many students as well as teachers were able to do all these things because of the lockdown, pandemic lockdown. And now there are some sites here for books like Open Book Library and Books for Doctors. All these things help us to get books directly. Next is OER repositories in India. Now when we come to India, when we talk about India, the first name that pops into our head when we talk about OERs is of course NPTEL. NPTEL is nothing but National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning. This is started by the IITs. The course content is developed by IIT professors, and the entire course and the assignments and all the course content, videos and the quiz, everything is developed by them. And at the end of the stipulated time, an exam is given, and whoever takes the exam will be graded, and they will be awarded the final certificate. Now these are the OER repositories: NPTEL, NROER, National Repository of Open Book. This is for school level. And next is Project Oscar, which is a project of IIT Bombay. And then there are other educational resources that are developed by Homi Bhabha Center. This is especially for science subjects. And of course, the last one is SWAYAM. SWAYAM is the study webs of active learning for young aspiring minds. This was started in 2017. It offers many courses of college level, and anybody who is studying in graduate level can take membership in that, and we can do lot of free courses from here. Next is of course the relevance of OER. Now OER is very much relevant even today, though it started somewhere in late 1990s. Still even today it is very much relevant because of the growth of the internet, because of the growth of the ICT tools in teaching. OER has become even more important now, I should say, because the main strength of OER is, of course, it is affordable, it is sustainable, customizable, and it can be enhanced. We can develop it in different types of formats. We can involve the users also in the development of the content. It is learner centric, definitely, and it can be used to upskill ourselves to be better at our jobs, to be more job ready, or to enhance our job profile. And it will help us to do research also. Next, Creative Commons licenses. There are different types of licenses that are there. First one is distribute, remix and adapt. In this license CC BY, we see that the user can take the material, remix it, adapt it and use it. Now next one is remix, adapt and also share alike. In share alike means the user can take the material, modify it according to the needs and share it on the same terms with somebody else. Next one is adapted, shared and commercial use. In this method, the common license is adapted. It is the material is taken, it is adapted, it can be shared and it can be even used commercially, means it can be sold commercially. The next license gives us a chance to remix, to adapt. Remix means you can take from different sources and make a new source. You can adapt, you can build, but it is for non-commercial purposes, means you can't sell it, you can just distribute it. Now the last one is remix, adapt, build, non-commercial, share alike. You cannot commercially distribute this, you cannot share it with anyone, and definitely you cannot sell it to anyone. The last one is download, share, non-commercial, no changes. Now this is a very restrictive OER. Here you can only download and share it, you cannot sell it and you cannot change the material. But in all the licenses we should remember that we should give credit to the author. There is always an author who has developed these OERs. So it is our primary duty to acknowledge the author whenever we use this material. It is freely available, true, but it is our duty to respect the person who has developed the OER. And that can be done by giving credit to the author. Now next, limitations of OER. What are the limitations of OER? The first and foremost is OERs are not permanent. In the sense, yeah, they are permanent in a sense, because the material that is developed will be stored on internet. Yes, true. But it is also not permanent. Why? Because many people keep taking it, remixing it, adapting it. So it will keep changing its form so much, isn't it? So finally, after a few years, it will lose its original shape. So that is the one of the limitations of OER. Next one is corporate takeover. There's always this danger, isn't it? Lot of content freely available. Somebody can make it a commercial enterprise. That is always there, that danger. Next one is intellectual property rights. Yeah, this is also important because the material that is created is the intellectual property of that person. So if he is not credited, if that person is not credited, it is really bad, isn't it? So that is one limitation for OER. The people who are using the OER may forget the developer. And there are no uniform development formats for it, because there is no set formula for the creation of OER. So there are no guidelines for this. So people develop OER however they like. So because of this, sometimes the material may be different in quality, sometimes the material may not be consistent. Such things can happen. And next, it can be very time consuming. Making an OER takes lot of time because it becomes very difficult because we need to have a huge team to develop OER, and it takes lot of time for the team to do all the material, and sometimes there might be cultural or language barriers. See, sometimes what happens is a task which is created, a task or a lesson plan which is created in another country may not be suitable for us culturally, okay, because our culture is different from theirs. So our children or our students may not understand that context. In such conditions, we have to tweak it. It is the duty of the teacher to make it culturally appropriate. Okay, and of course there might be some technological issues. See, technology is very inconsistent. As long as it works, it's good, but once it stops, some issues may arise and it becomes difficult. So, and also the last one is definitely sustainability. Sustainability of OER is very important. If it is not rewarding, people don't come forward to make OERs. So people who develop OERs also should get their due respect as well as payments. So this is very important to make OERs go stronger. Okay. Next is, what are the tools to create OERs? There are many tools like Pressbooks, Mentab, and Smithsonian Learning Lab, and iTunes also is there, iTunes Author. So all these tools, there are many more in Google. You can search if you want. These tools are there to create OERs on your own. Now, what is the future of OER? The future of OER is definitely strong. Okay, there's no doubt about it. But writers have commented a few projections. They have given a few projections in their comments about the future of OER. They say that till now OERs have been static. Means whatever is created is there, people take it, remix it and use it. But they say that in future OERs can become dynamic. Means the OER that is used can be made interactive, and the students can put their own views into that, or the other users also can put their own views into that, and they can manipulate the content. Okay, and now we have cloud technologies which offer a vast storage which can be accessed by people all over the world. So in such conditions, developing a huge OERs also will be very easy, and they can be stored and distributed worldwide. And definitely the future is going to be artificial intelligence. So this also can be tapped in developing OERs, and of course the user participation should be there in content creation. That can happen in future more and more, and maybe the creation of OERs can become very flexible. And they say that till now OERs have been concentrating on theory, on theorizing something, but in future OERs may become application oriented, and they will be concentrating more on task based and skill based education. Till now we have only content based, isn't it? So but nowadays the thirst is more on skills, so people want to learn more skills by the end of their coursework. So that can be provided through OERs and other open courses, and then there should be a good a learner and creator interface. Means the developer as well as the learner should interface, and they can give their feedback actively. It can be used in modifying the OER, and it is going to be more and more collaborative, because of internet now the world is growing smaller, so it is very easy to collaborate now and work on OERs. So definitely the future is going to be very bright for OERs. So this is my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much Trinity College for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.